Now that I have more information on the 1.3 units and also Yanagi Early Access Kit and reviews are finally here, there's still a lot of players thinking if they should or not pull Burnice. So if you are one of those players, then this video is for you. I'm going to share my final thoughts on Burnice in this last 6 days of banner that we have on Burnice, and especially if you're looking for Yanagi, then I highly recommend you pulling Burnice, and I'm going to explain for you why. Burnice for me is like a one of a kind, and I'm not saying this because she's the only unit to trigger anomalies even when she's out of the field. I say that she's a one of a kind because she's the only unit in the game that can feel an off-field DPS unit. You might probably think about Grace, but Grace is kind of heavily tied to Anomaly. You know, she is more like a burst anomaly than an off-field DPS unit. You need to enter the field with Grace, do your proper rotation to maximize how much shock you're going to build up on the enemy, and after triggering the shock, you can leave the field for another DPS unit. Burnice, on the other hand, doesn't rely on her anomalies to keep dealing damage when she's out of the field. Because of her core skill, you can simply swap to Burnice, use a simple skill or charge it basic attack, mark down enemies, and there you go. It's super easy to play and mark down enemies, and the damage that is going to come from her core skill is actually massive. So she scales pretty much with every single stat, and she isn't tied to anomaly, unlike Grace. There's also another point that I want to bring from my Burnice guide that I want to fix, that for a crit-based Burnice, which I like to call Critnice, for a Critnice build, you want to play on a mono fire team composition and use her signature weapon. However, these are not true at all. Some viewers pointed out, and after giving some thought and also playing Burnice, because one thing is like doing the theory and playing the game. Playing the game is a little bit hard for me, not because of a skill issue, but because of all my tests for Burnice, for the Burnice guide, were made in the Disorder training course. I still managed to get like a lot of things right and do a lot of deep tests on Burnice. However, there's some things that I cannot test and need to rely a little bit on theory. And crit-based builds on Burnice was one of the things that I really missed. You don't need to play on a mono fire team composition, and you also don't need to use her signature weapon. It's completely fine for you to even, let's say, whipping Gemini on your Burnice with crit discs, and you're still going to deal like a really decent damage because Burnice scales so well with every single offensive stats that as long as you can build it properly and get some good discs, you're ready to go. If you got some Chaos Jazz with crit rolls, then feel free to level her up, slap on Burnice, and that's it. She's going to benefit from every single offensive stat. And speaking of weapons, by now you probably already know, but in case you don't know, you don't need her signature weapon just because of the energy regeneration. Of course, it's the only anomaly weapon to give you energy regeneration. However, Burnice doesn't need this as long as you can kill the enemy fast enough. Because if you're still struggling to clear shield defense, then yeah, you're going to need to manage your resources, both hit and energy, because otherwise you're going to deactivate her core or lack energy to keep using EX special and burn the enemy and also refill her hit gauge. And for things, I know that I've been saying ever since before the 1.2 release that Jane Caesar Burnice was going to be like the premium Disorder thing. This was like really like a bad take, because right now we have the confirmation that Yanagi is going to be the Disorder focused character. It's not exactly Burnice that is focused on Disorder. Yanagi is going to be the character centered around Disorder. Burnice is more like a Disorder enabler and also a off-field DPS, as I pointed out before. Burnice doesn't require Disorder, you see. Jane also doesn't require Disorder. Yanagi, on the other hand, she wants to Disorder the enemy as much as possible. And Jane, I've been getting like slower clears using Jane with Burnice than Jane with double support. Using like Jane Seth Caesar gives me faster clear than going for Jane Seth Burnice, for example. Both because Seth is not going to buff both anomaly units, he's only going to buff Jane. But even if I go for like Jane, Lucy, Burnice, I'm going to lose so much anomaly proficiency on Jane, and this is going to lower too much of a damage. It kind of doesn't make sense to go for Burnice with Jane. Jane wants to be played as a hyper carry, and this leaves Burnice for Grace teams, Piper teams, and now in the future, Yanagi if you're looking to pull for her. Piper Lucy is a free to play and a really solid team composition for you. Of course, the composition starts to shine once you get Lucy to Mindscape 6. However, even without Mindscape 6, Piper and Lucy alone can work really well with Burnice. So in conclusion, I would say that Burnice is definitely like a solid addition for any account, and I highly recommend you pulling for her. The only scenario where I wouldn't recommend you pulling Burnice is if you're not interested in anomaly team compositions. I know that I said that she's not anomaly tied. However, let's think a little bit about other DPS units. Let's take a look on Ellen. Ellen is a sustained DPS. Maybe you could use Burnice with her. But why would you use Burnice when there's like better support options for your Ellen? You know, I don't think like Burnice is going to find a lot of places outside of Anomaly team compositions, despite the fact that she's not tied to Anomaly at all. However, if for some reason you are interested in pulling for Yanagi, I would highly recommend you getting Burnice, because the amount of damage that you're going to get on a Burnice Yanagi team composition is way higher than going for Grace Yanagi. Grace Yanagi works, so if you have Grace, you can definitely go for a mono electric composition. You're just going to replace Anton with Yanagi. However, you're kind of losing another source of disorder for Yanagi, and the Yanagi whole kit and whole damage is going to be centered around disorder. Burnice can add like another layer of damage when compared to going for a mono shock team composition. So yeah, overall, these are my thoughts. I will finish doing some evaluations on Yanagi and Lighter as well before publishing my pull value guide for the 1.3. I also finishing some calculations on Piper. I want to release my Piper guide really soon as well. So let me know in the comments if you are going to pull for Burnice just because of Yanagi, or if you're a pull for Burnice. Let me hear your thoughts on Burnice as well, because I have no regrets on pulling Burnice. You can also join my Discord and chat over there and leave your thoughts on Burnice and the Yanagi. If you like this video, remember to give it a like. As always, thanks for watching, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in my next video.